Hello, Per. Thank you for meeting me here at the EFFSO headquarters in Stockholm. For those who don't know you, can you start out by letting us know who are you?
Welcome, Anna. Well, my name is Per Finnhammar. I'm one of 4 partners at EFFSO. I have a long background in the purchasing field, where I've been working for companies like PricewaterhouseCoopers, Capgemini, IBX. But since recently, I'm now a partner with EFFSO.
And who are EFFSO?
EFFSO is one of Sweden's leading consulting companies focusing on consulting, interim management, talent search and development, as well as outsourcing.
And I'm here today to talk to you about category management in Sweden and the rest of the Nordics. Can you elaborate how well spread would you say that category management is?
Well, I think people would argue that category management was established sometimes during the 80s. Even some people would even say maybe late 70s in the automotive industry. Initially, it was applied mainly on the direct material and services categories, but lately it has been spread into indirects. And when I say lately, I would say it's been very much on people's tongue the last 5 years, 5, maybe 7 years. And it's growing. So when it comes to category management, it's been a evolution, I would say. As usual, things get started in the direct material space, and when it works well, it also flows over to the indirect space. And same thing with category management.
And EFFSO just released a white paper in Swedish, though, but a white paper focusing on outsourcing of category management. Why?
Well, business process outsourcing, or BPO, has been taking stands in Sweden. We have lately seen Sandvik and Scania outsourcing their accounts payable or finance and accounting. And we see the business process outsourcing concept taking inroads in Sweden. We don't have so much literature written from a Swedish perspective when it comes to business process outsourcing. So given that EFFSO's field of expertise is purchasing, and personally I have been working all over the world with outsourcing of category management or category management BPO, so it felt right to share some more insights around category management BPO and just in Swedish, from a Swedish perspective, and how it works on the Swedish marketplace.
And this is, of course, very, very interesting. And I know that you did an interview session in 2014 with Swedish procurement managers, CPOs. What came out of that? What did they say?
Well, I think it was a very interesting session. It's definitely on their agenda. That's clear. I think also what was clear was that many of them doesn't really know how to relate to it. It's a fairly new topic. They lack some knowledge. They want more. They realize that this is something that is coming. But they don't know exactly how to apply it on their organization or their field. I can see clearly a need for information and insight. I think a good example is last year at your Source to Pay Summit. We could see 5 round tables with 5 to 10 visitors at each round table, discussing only category management BPO. In 2009, when I left Sweden, the last similar summit I went to, category management BPO wasn't spoken about at all. So definitely we can see a shift here. Something is happening, and by doing this interview study and sharing the results in this white paper, we hope that we will contribute to developing Swedish purchasing.
And what does it mean? What does it mean to do category management BPO?
A very simple definition would be that we take over the whole life cycle of the categories that is part of a outsourcing. So let's say that it's the indirect categories, which is quite common. We would take over the whole life cycle of managing those categories, from ID generation through potential RFPs or policy changes, through implementation, follow-up and measuring, and over again, so to say. It's a long-term thing, so normally we would do that over 3, 5, 7 year period or even longer. The longest engagement that I've been part of has been there for 14 years and is still going.
So if you're a CPO considering to outsource, where in your strategy does it fit? Is it a cost reduction, quick fix, or how should you consider the business case? What's in it for the CPO?
That's a really good question. Traditional, more transactional BPO, like finance and accounting or accounts payable outsourcing, it's a very transactional process. In such a process, it's all about labor arbitrage, doing it where the labor costs are cheaper, applying their global process models to it to get more efficient. So it's about the cost of running the process. When it comes to category management BPO, it's not about labor arbitrage or getting more efficient in the processes. It's more about what can be done with the spend that we get to manage. So what we normally say is that we will deliver 3 to 5 times the cost of the supplier engagements, the supplier engagement cost. So 3 to 5x is what you should get out in savings. Is what you should get out of a category management BPO, and you get that from addressing the spend, not from the cost of operations, which is very different to a traditional transactional BPO.
And indirect purchasing and indirect procurement it's a challenge due to the fact that it takes a lot of change to get the results. It's one thing doing the contracts, etc., but still you need to change behavior to a big extent. Also, probably on a management level, how do you foresee an external partner like EFFSO being able to help the CPO achieve that?
Now that's a good question, and I see two components of that. I see in my daily work many organizations, specifically in the Nordics, struggling with implementing category management. It's both the methodology as such, but also the structure, how you organize yourself. So the change management required to move from a traditional ad hoc transactional purchasing department to a category management type purchasing department. That is one part of the change management. The other part of it is, of course, the impact that you have on the rest of the organization, to your stakeholders, to all the people that buys on the contract, etc. So you have both those change management implications. The advantage with of course a category management BPO is that the first part of it, how to change the internal purchasing organization is limited. But the change management efforts needed for the rest of the organization is still there. You still have that challenge. Hopefully you have a provider coming in there with some ideas around that change management, but you need to combine forces between the retained purchasing organizations and your outsourcing provider to drive that change. And that's a change both with stakeholders and also all the people that need to drive compliance. Each and every single purchasing project will have a change component into it to drive compliance and new policies or whatever it could be.
If you look ahead, what do you foresee happening in Sweden and the Nordics within the procurement area? What do you think?
Well, it's a wide question. There's certain things that I of course take with me from having worked since 2010 in the US, and many times we tend to take on some of those concepts that we see over there, and then one of those are of course BPO, category management BPO, and in the US there are quite a few really big players doing category management BPO. So that's a clear trend that I see, and I think we're going to see more of that here in the Nordics as well. Another thing that is evident from especially in the US market, but also in all the other Anglo-Saxon countries, is the use of procurement technology, such as e-sourcing, e-procurement, reverse auctions, etc., even contract management and a few other tools. I see a much higher usage of that type of technology in the US market than I see in Sweden. And I think that comes back to the fact that we are, from an industrial perspective, we are very mature in Sweden, and we are one of the leading countries in the world. But we are not always that good at developing new business concepts and taking risks, and I think that's part of why the US is kind of leaping ahead there, because of their risk willingness, the high competition on the marketplace, and the huge markets as such. Of course, it's much simpler to deploy new business concepts there. So I see a few of those things that will definitely impact here in Sweden.
I have to tap into one area that you spoke of now, and I think that in all we at least talk about a globalization and a higher degree of transparency in the way we're doing business, etc. How do you come in? I mean, we're really talking about really large organizations here that are active probably in a more or less global market. And like you say, you have the global players. Where does EFFSO fit in that global market in Sweden and the Nordics?
Okay, I think it depends how you look at that question. I think globalization is clearly happening, as we all know. However, I think there's certain local or regional components that we need to take account to, whatever way it moves. And I think when it comes to category management specifically, we talk a lot about we should have global category managers and global categories. And yes, some categories are truly global, but they are not that many, and we have a lot of local and regional variations. So I think it's important to understand and actually be quite selective. What categories should you really run on a truly global level? Like, for example, large parts of IT is truly global, but other parts of IT is very local. And if we are to optimize how we drive our structure and our savings into our companies, we need to look at both the global and the very local / regional behaviors of the supply market.
And finally, if you were to give advice to a CPO sitting there, I guess what you're saying, looking ahead and thinking about how to develop their organization further rather than looking at simply how to reduce cost, what advice would you give them?
When it comes to capital management BPO, I think it's a couple of key things. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, capital management BPO is not a sequential process like accounts payable, for example. It's not about the cost of operations. It's about managing the spend. So, whether you're ready or not ready to outsource your capital management is not dependent. It is not a certain trigger point. Now I'm ready because I have all my processes in order. Because in this case, it's rather a toolbox. The capital management process is a toolbox for smart people to manage, to use the right tools when they are applicable. So I think one of the key things is, of course, data. And when it comes to data, the data is there in your accounts payable. So I think this is more about the organizational and your own motivation. Are you ready to drive this challenge? Is this right for your company? Is the higher degree of focus on directs and where you have your edge, or where you should be focusing your resources? Meanwhile, someone else makes sure that you don't leave breadcrumbs on the table that you can address with your indirect procurement. If that is what you want to do, then category management BPO is for you, could be for you. So I think that's the key there, really.
Well, I wish you the best of luck, and thank you for letting us know more what you're doing here at EFFSO.
Thank you very much.